There were days when everything seemed to pile up at once, Pisces. Not because you were weak, but because you stayed strong for far too long in silence. Unspoken pressure, the same worries looping again and again, and that quiet feeling that you were carrying more than you ever needed to. But lately, something very subtle has been shifting inside you. Not loud, not sudden, just a sense of breathing a little easier than before, as if an old chapter is slowly closing, making room for something gentler to step in. This video doesn't promise miracles. It's simply a slow, reflective story about endings, about blessings that arrive quietly, and about the sense of relief Pisces is gradually learning to allow in. And to understand why that heavy period is beginning to fade, we start at the beginning, when a demanding cycle finally reaches its closing moment. Pisces has been moving through a stretch of time that's hard to put into words. Not exactly a tragedy, and not anything loud or dramatic, but long enough to wear you down. Those were the days you kept telling yourself you were fine, even while so many questions remained unanswered inside. The feeling of constantly adapting, being softer, being more patient, understanding others more than you understood yourself. And then, looking back, you realized you had been carrying far more than was ever truly yours. In cycles like this, Pisces rarely complains. You choose silence. You believe things will work themselves out if you just try a little harder. But as time moves on, that effort leaves marks. Not on the surface, but deep inside. In very private moments when no one is watching. You finally notice how tired you really are. This phase didn't come to punish you. If anything, it came to teach something subtle. That endurance isn't always strength, and continuing forward isn't always the only option. Sometimes, real strength lives in recognizing where you are, what you're holding, and what has reached the point where it deserves to be set down. Lately, you may have sensed a very small shift, not the kind that makes you celebrate, just a difference in the way you breathe. A morning where you wake up and the weight feels lighter. An evening where your mind doesn't circle the past as much as it used to. Very faint signals, easy to miss, but clear enough to tell you the old cycle is slowly closing. This ending doesn't arrive through major events. It happens quietly, in how you respond differently to the same situations. It's in how you no longer feel the need to explain yourself so much. In the moment you choose distance from what once hurt you. Not because you've grown colder, but because you understand you need peace. Pisces is sensitive, but also deeply perceptive. You sense movement before it becomes obvious. And even if you can't fully name what's changing yet, you know something inside is becoming lighter. As if you're no longer holding on to stories that have already reached their ending. As if you're allowing yourself to admit that a chapter has completed its purpose. Closing doesn't mean loss. Often it's a form of maturity. When you look back now, there's less resentment. Fewer questions about why you had to endure so much. What remains is a quiet understanding that everything you've lived through helped shape who you are today. That heavy cycle may have taught you how to listen to yourself, how to tell the difference between compassion and overgiving, how kindness should never cost you exhaustion, and most of all, it reminded you that you too deserve support, rest, and a slower pace of living. When a cycle closes like this, there's no applause. No grand announcement, just a silent shift within. A sense that you no longer need to stay where your heart feels heavy. A gentle acceptance that it's time to turn the page, even if the next one doesn't need to be clear just yet. And from that soft closing, the next possibilities finally have space to appear. No rush, no pressure, just small steps, leading Pisces away from a demanding chapter toward a place that feels easier to breathe. But before moving forward, take a moment to fully feel this one. The moment you realize you've come far enough and grown strong enough to let go. There comes a point in life when Pisces begins to realize that exhaustion doesn't come only from what's happening outside. It comes from within, from the way you've learned to treat yourself over a long stretch of time. Not everyone notices this early, but once you do, the feeling is both gentle and deeply sobering. You start paying closer attention to yourself, not to judge, but to listen. You notice there are things that quietly drained your energy, things you kept doing because you believed they were your responsibility. There were connections that required you to brace yourself, just to keep everything looking fine. And there were expectations not placed on you by anyone else, but ones you carried all on your own. Change doesn't arrive in a single clear moment. It moves slowly, in the way you pause before saying yes, in the way you allow silence instead of feeling the need to explain, in the moments you choose to be alone without guilt. Those small choices, added together, begin to create a new inner space. Pisces has always been used to living through the emotions of others. You naturally step into their perspective. You empathize easily. You give way. But the recent chapter may have led you to ask an honest question. If you continue like this, what will remain for you? That question doesn't frighten you. It wakes you up. The relief you're sensing now isn't because everything is settled. In truth, many things may still be unclear. The difference is this: you're no longer forcing yourself to be strong according to someone else's definition. You're no longer requiring yourself to always be fine, always understanding, always the one who smooths things over. For the first time in a long while, you allow yourself to be honest with your own feelings. There are days when you realize not everything needs an immediate response, not everyone needs an explanation, and not every problem is yours to carry. As that understanding settles in, your pace slows down. Not because you've given up, but because you've learned to choose. Knowing yourself isn't about finding every answer. Sometimes it's simply recognizing your limits, how far you can go, how much you can hold, and what goes beyond your capacity right now. That awareness doesn't weaken you, it protects you. Pisces also begins to see that emotions aren't something that need fixing. There are days when you don't feel energized, and nothing is wrong with that. There are moments when you need quiet, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for it. When you stop fighting yourself, a very soft sense of ease begins to appear. This relief isn't loud. It's like taking off a heavy layer of clothing after a long day. No one else sees it, but your body knows. You breathe deeper, you sleep more soundly, and the thoughts that once looped endlessly no longer hold you for quite as long. Perhaps the most important gift this phase brings is permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to change your mind. Permission to choose a path with less pressure, even when it doesn't match what others expect. When you begin living from self-understanding instead of constantly responding to the world around you, a quiet steadiness starts to feel natural. And from that very sense of ease, Pisces becomes more aware of what's happening inside. Not confusion anymore, but a calm enough space to keep moving forward. No rush, no need to prove anything, just staying aligned with your own rhythm. And that becomes the ground where whatever comes next can take shape, in a way that feels personal, balanced, and truly yours. When Pisces begins to slow down, it's not that the world suddenly changes, but the way you see the world does. And in that shift, very small things start to become easier to notice. Nothing grand, nothing overwhelming, just brief moments, but enough to make you pause for a second and feel your heart soften. It might be a casual conversation, arriving at the exact moment you needed to hear a certain sentence. It might be a simple check-in, something that seems ordinary, yet touches the place where you've been quiet for far too long. Or it could be as simple as a day passing without too many disruptions, and you realize you made it through without bracing yourself the way you used to. These moments aren't miracles, but for Pisces, they carry a very personal meaning. Blessings in this phase don't arrive as rewards for hard effort. They come as gentle reminders that you're being supported in ways you're able to receive, not loudly, not dramatically, not needing an audience, only requiring enough stillness for you to recognize that you're not walking through everything alone. Pisces has always been sensitive to subtle signals. You sense changes in the air, in someone's expression, and how things naturally line up. And now, those signals feel different, no longer a pressure to seize or control them, none but an invitation to let things unfold in their own rhythm. Support begins to come from unexpected places, not because someone plans to help, but because they arrive at the right moment. A piece of advice that feels just enough. A door opening in a very ordinary way. A new option appearing when you've stopped searching so hard. None of this asks you to change your life overnight. It only asks you to notice that something is moving more gently now. What's important is this: when Pisces stops forcing control, you begin to feel emotional support more clearly. Not because someone steps in to fix things for you, but because you no longer feel cornered into handling everything alone. A very soft sense of trust forms inside. that if you keep moving forward with honesty and with patience, things will eventually find their place. Sometimes, a blessing is simply a breath, a morning when you wake up without heaviness in your chest, an evening where you sit quietly and don't feel the need to think too far ahead. These moments aren't recorded, they aren't named, but they nourish you from the inside out. Pisces may also notice that when you treat yourself with more gentleness, the world responds in a similar way. Not because you change others, but because you change how you show up. You stop carrying tension into every interaction. You stop expecting too much from people around you. And that creates a softer space where good things can pass through. This phase doesn't ask you to chase opportunity at all costs. It simply invites you to pay attention to what's arriving naturally. Sometimes a blessing isn't about gaining something new, but realizing you already have enough to keep going. Support doesn't make you dependent. It helps you stand more firmly on your own ground. For Pisces, the feeling of not being alone is a profound gift. Not because you need constant company, but because you know you're connected to real values, connected to kindness, connected to something beyond personal calculation. And within that connection, you find the motivation to keep living true to your nature. Blessings arrive in this quiet way, not loud, not demanding. Present just enough to let you know you're moving in the right direction, even if the road ahead is still unclear. And from that sense of being supported, Pisces gains the calm to continue forward with gentle gratitude and a trust that feels steady and deeply peaceful. After sensing that quiet inner support, Pisces begins to look at very practical matters through a different lens. Not every worry disappears. Life still moves forward with bills, responsibilities, and decisions that need careful thought. But something has shifted in the way you approach all of it. The tension reflex softens, and in its place comes a calmer form of observation. Before, whenever money or stability came to mind, your body would tighten, as if loosening your grip for even a moment might cause everything to slip away. This phase feels different. You no longer see things that way. You begin to notice that pressure doesn't come only from numbers or circumstances, but from the way you place weight on yourself. Pisces is learning to see clearly the line between what you can influence and what needs to be allowed to move on its own, not by giving up, but by rearranging. You pay closer attention to your daily rhythm. You think more carefully before making choices. And most importantly, you stop using anxiety as a way to push yourself forward. Material balance in this phase doesn't come from having more, but from using what you already have with greater awareness. You may begin to rethink how you distribute your time, your effort, your energy. You may notice that not every expense is necessary, and not every opportunity needs to be taken right away. That clarity brings a genuine sense of ease. Pisces can easily be carried by emotion, but now you're learning to take one step back when facing long-term decisions. You no longer rush out of fear of lack. You stop comparing yourself to others as a way to create pressure. Instead, you ask what fits your current situation and what can afford to wait. Things may still feel unclear, but you no longer feel cornered. The worries that once kept you awake now sit in a more balanced place within your mind. You don't try to push them away, but you also don't allow them to take over every thought. This shift is quiet, yet it creates a steady foundation. As material pressure softens, Pisces finds more room to breathe. That space allows you to see possibilities you once overlooked because worry filled the room. You realize you can adjust your pace. You can choose steps that are slower but steadier. You can build stability in a way that doesn't drain you. What matters is this: you no longer treat balance as a fixed destination. You understand it's a process, one that rises and falls, and you stop blaming yourself when things aren't perfect. Instead, you return to what's essential, to the values you truly want to carry forward. Pisces also begins to understand that a sense of security doesn't come only from finances. It comes from trusting your own ability to adapt. You've been through harder periods than this, and you know that whatever lies ahead, you can find your way without losing yourself. This phase doesn't demand risk-taking or drastic change. It simply invites you to adjust how you use your energy each day. When you stop resisting, stop straining to control, a more balanced rhythm forms naturally. Not abundant, but enough to feel safe. Not perfect, but enough to keep going. And within that gradual balance, Pisces begins to sense something very simple, yet deeply reassuring. You don't need to race to prove your worth. By living in alignment with your own rhythm, by caring for what's already present, that stability finds its way to you in a very personal manner, quietly, steadily, and in a way that allows you to move forward with calm confidence into the next chapters of this journey. As your pace begins to steady, Pisces slowly becomes aware of a change that runs very deep, yet is hard to name. It doesn't come from the outside. No one hands it to you. And it isn't the result of one big decision. It arrives in the moment you stop gripping what has felt heavy in your hands for far too long. And in that moment, a sense of lightness spreads, very slowly, but undeniably real. Pisces has grown used to carrying the emotions of others. You listen, you understand. You place yourself where things can be softened. There are responsibilities you accepted without ever being asked. There are sorrows that were never yours. Yet you carried them because you didn't want anyone else to suffer alone. Over time, this became a habit, so familiar that you forgot what emotional rest even felt like. In this phase, you're no longer trying to be the anchor for everyone around you. Not because your nature has changed, but because you've begun to recognize your limits. You understand now that kindness doesn't need to come at the cost of exhaustion, and your presence still matters, even when you can't fix everything for others. Inner release doesn't arrive through bold declarations. It unfolds quietly, in allowing yourself not to respond right away, in no longer feeling the need to explain every choice you make. In evenings you choose stillness, not for anyone else, but because you need that space. Pisces starts to sense more clearly which emotions belong to you, and which ones you once carried unconsciously for someone else. As those boundaries take shape, you don't grow colder, you grow clearer, clear with yourself, and from there, more sincere in every connection. You may notice you've been in situations that required you to sacrifice too much, and just to keep things from falling apart. You may have believed that letting go would make everything worse, but in truth, when you stop bracing yourself, life doesn't collapse, it reorganizes. And in that reordering, you reclaim space that belongs to you. This release brings a very particular state. Not quite happiness, not excitement either. It feels like setting down a heavy bag after a long journey. Your body isn't used to the lightness yet, but you know you don't want to carry that weight again. Pisces also learns to accept that you don't always have to be strong. There are days you're tired, and that's completely okay. There are moments when you need to step back, and that doesn't diminish your worth. When you allow yourself to simply be, without adding another role to play. A very personal sense of freedom begins to emerge. This phase doesn't ask you to cut away everything old. It simply invites you to review and to choose. What continues to nourish you, you keep. What weighs on your heart each time you think of it may be ready to be set down. Release isn't loss, it's the restoration of inner balance. Pisces carries a natural capacity to heal. But to offer that to others, you must first allow yourself to heal as well. Not through complicated methods, but through very ordinary choices. Rest when you need to. Say no when it's too much. And don't blame yourself for choosing peace. When you stop carrying responsibility for everyone, you don't become selfish. You become awake. You understand that everyone has their own journey, and you don't need to walk it for them. Your presence, no longer shaped by pressure, becomes lighter and far more genuine. And from this inner release, Pisces begins to feel a return to your original nature, softer, quieter, ready to move forward. Not because you have to, but because you want to. No longer pulled by what belongs to the past. You open a new inner space, one where peace can stay just a little longer. After everything you've moved through, Pisces doesn't step into a new phase in a rush. There's no sense of chasing anyone, no urge to prove anything to the world around you. Instead, there's a very different state, lighter, quieter, as if you've learned how to trust your own natural rhythm. The road ahead doesn't place heavy demands on your shoulders. It doesn't ask you to become a more perfect version of yourself. It doesn't force you to make big decisions right away. It simply invites you to keep walking, one step at a time, with fuller presence in each moment. No need to rush, no need to be strong, just real. Pisces has always relied on intuition, and now that intuition feels gentler. No longer urgent signals that create anxiety, but quiet suggestions, soft and refined. You begin to trust that you don't need to see the entire path ahead. You only need enough awareness to recognize the next step when it appears. Soft trust is not naive. It's shaped by experience, by trial and error, by moments when you once doubted yourself. After all of that, you understand that life doesn't move forward through perfect plans, but through adaptability and patience. And you carry both in your own way. In this phase, Pisces no longer forces itself to have answers for everything. Some things are allowed to remain open. Some questions are left where they are. Peace doesn't come from controlling the future, but from knowing you can meet it when the time comes. That understanding creates a deep sense of steadiness. You also begin to see goodness through a different lens. Not as major milestones, but as very ordinary moments. A quiet morning, a day that passes without feeling too heavy. A conversation where you feel free to be yourself. These small moments slowly come together, forming a foundation stronger than any promise. This new phase doesn't pressure you to change who you are. It simply invites you to live more honestly with what you've learned, to keep your kindness without paying for it with exhaustion, to keep your sensitivity without letting it wound you, and most importantly, to keep the belief that you deserve a gentler life. Pisces no longer walks while waiting for something to happen. You walk because the journey itself has meaning. Each step is a conscious choice. Each day is an opportunity to live closer to your true values. No display, no comparison, just full presence. Soft trust also helps you meet imperfect days in a different way. When difficulties arise, you don't panic. When things slow down, you don't blame yourself. You understand that everything has its rhythm, and you don't need to move faster than that rhythm. Peace grows from this acceptance. And when you look back on the journey so far, Pisces may notice something quietly beautiful. You've been through enough to no longer fear change. You've learned how to let go, how to understand yourself, how to receive support, how to balance, and how to release. None of this turned you into someone else. It brought you closer to who you truly are. This journey is not a story about everything becoming perfect. It's a story about learning how to live more lightly in a world that never stops moving. Pisces doesn't need to rush, doesn't need to prove anything. Just keep moving forward with a gentle trust in yourself. And within that trust, little by little, peace stays. Good things find their way to you in their own manner, at the right time, at the right pace, and in alignment with the person you are becoming.